set, hut, hut.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sounds of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50 to 10 to 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
The Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride.
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
We've no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night.
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into the Country Roads webcast for another live stream here, April 30th edition. And man, did West Virginia want to end the month with a bang or what? What a day for WVU out here recruiting the transfer portal. Multiple commitments in one day. You know, we've seen them a couple of times here in the past week or two, get 2 commitments in one day, and I thought that was big. How about doubling that up today? 4 commitments today for the Mountaineers out on the recruiting trail. 3 transfers and a junior college recruit that's really highly rated as well that we're going to talk about. 2 of these are guys we've had on commitment watch here on our past transfer portal updates. So be sure, keep it locked here for your transfer portal updates. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, come over and do that if you're watching on Facebook or Twitch here on the live stream. Appreciate everyone that does tune into these live. If you're watching this on the playback after the fact on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, help us out with that algorithm. And like I said, be sure to subscribe here. We'll keep you up to date with what's going on in the portal. And today, what's going on for WVU is some really good news. I think that these 2 guys that were on commitment watch that committed to the Mountaineers are both potential starters, one on each side of the ball, one on the offensive line, one in the secondary. So with no further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about these guys. Let's lead off with talking about the 2 that I think are, all of these guys I think can make an impact. But I think right away, the 2 that are going to make the biggest impact are the first 2 that we're going to talk about here. And those are the 2 that I'm saying I think are going to maybe be potential starters for the Mountaineers. Both really highly rated in the transfer portal, actually. So let's start off first here talking about Carson Lee, who I think was one of our latest additions to the transfer tracker here to the target list after we saw he was visiting WVU. And of course, put him on commitment watch. And then lo and behold, comes out today. This is from Chris Hummer here of 247. Mississippi State offensive lineman Carson Lee has committed to West Virginia per his rep. He played for Eastern Michigan, there for about 3 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. Has made starts the last 2 years at center, right guard, and left guard. Top 10 available player in the 247 portal rankings. So top 10 player that was available remaining in the portal. West Virginia gets him to add to the offensive line. Multiple starts at the collegiate level there at Eastern Michigan. And yeah, he's coming from Mississippi State because that's where he went in the spring, but most of his experience was there at Eastern Michigan. And let's not forget, West Virginia landed Man Singleton in the first transfer portal cycle, who's also from Eastern Michigan. So didn't hurt our chances here at Carson Lee. I also saw him and Nico tweeting because both from the Colorado area, apparently. But a top 10 player in the portal, West Virginia adds, and a guy that, like we said, was a starter. And I think he's going to come into West Virginia and have a chance to start right away on the offensive line. Excited about his addition. So let's go ahead. Let's take Carson Lee. I'll pull up our transfer portal tracker here. We can move him from the target list to our transfer in list as we talk about these guys that West Virginia picked up today with a huge day on the transfer portal trail. Where is there it is. Okay. So let's go ahead and find, and we're going to clear some names off this list as well throughout the stream. We got some names to add to the target list we'll talk about later on, and we even have some movement on the basketball side we'll talk about at the very end of the stream. But we'll take Carson Lee here from our target list up to the transfer in list. Go ahead and add him in here with the other pickups that West Virginia had. And funny enough, two of them today are listed as from Mississippi State because, like you said, Carson Lee went there for the spring, and West Virginia also picked up a linebacker from Mississippi State we'll talk about momentarily. But we want to add Carson Lee to our transfer in list, who we've had on commitment watch in a previous stream. And then for a few streams now, we had Darian Lewis on commitment watch as well, and was really hoping West Virginia will be able to snag him. And that is the other commitment we're going to talk about here as well that I think could be a potential starter in the secondary for the Mountaineers. Darian Lewis, another big pickup, just like Carson Lee was for the offensive line. I think Darian Lewis is big for the defensive secondary as well, with a chance to come in and start. So here are the four that West Virginia added today. We just hit on Carson Lee a little bit. We're about to talk briefly about Darian Lewis. Then we'll hit on the other two, Kalen Gray and John Lewis. Funny enough, two guys named Lewis, two guys from Mississippi State. But I think it's interesting if you see what West Virginia is doing on the offensive line here. They've already brought in four guys. I think they could add 1 to 2 more, bring in 5 or 6 offensive linemen, and, just kind of have those 5 and 6 compete with the 5 that were here for the spring and let the best men win those jobs there on the line. And then you have a nice little 2 deep nonetheless. And I think it's also interesting to look Carson Lee, technically coming from Mississippi State, so coming from the SEC, Malik Agbo coming from the SEC, Josh Isosa coming from the SEC. You have Tykees Crawford in the first portal window, who played tackle in the spring from the SEC in Arkansas, and Kimo Makaneole from the SEC and LSU. So potentially could have nearly all SEC offensive line for West Virginia as far as transfers that have come in. But we knew offensive line was the weak point. They've certainly went out and hit it hard here in the portal, and I like a lot of the pieces they've added. And Carson Lee is up there in that list. You guys know me. When West Virginia gets these transfers, I like to go look at College Football 25 video game, check out their ratings there, see where they stacked up on their teams and such. And Carson Lee was the second highest rated offensive lineman on Eastern Michigan, 79 overall there, and listed at the center position. Like we said, we know he's played both guard spots and played center. It'd be interesting to see what he plays at WVU. I mean, he could come in and maybe be the starting center day one, or at least compete with Landon Livingston for that job. I think that's a possibility that we could see for Carson Lee, but you're definitely going to see him on that interior helping West Virginia this season. Just like I think you're going to see Darian Lewis helping out the secondary. So let's talk about his addition now as well. Pull up the tweet that announced that earlier today as well. Like we said, a big day for West Virginia on the trail. 4 commitments today. We've talked about one there briefly in Carson Lee. Now I want to talk about Darian Lewis, if I can find the right post here. Got so many tabs pulled up because we've got a lot of news to cover today. Good problem to have, right? Here we are. So this was from Matt Zenitz of 247 Sports. Akron cornerback transfer Darian Lewis is signed with West Virginia. 3-year starter at Akron. Career totals of 200 plus tackles at 202, 2 interceptions, and 15 pass breakups. And then we also saw this tweet come out in reference to the pickup for West Virginia of Darian Lewis, which I think really sold me on it even more. And then I want to talk a little bit about what he's rated on College Football 25, because it's even more impressive potentially. Do I not have that tweet there? Let's see. Oh, here it is. So Darian Lewis is a 5-star transfer safety, rated as the number 2 best safety available. So in these 4 pickups today West Virginia got, we just talked about Carson Lee, who was rated as a top 10 transfer prospect by 247 Sports. Darian Lewis was rated as a 5-star transfer safety and the number 2 best safety available here, according to the BIP list. Right here, you see him talking a little bit about him. Transfer Darian Lewis is a do-it-all, versatile playmaker, whether in the slot playing man, safety, or fitting the run in the box. He's elite. No loafs on film, always running the ball. Love his tape. And I'm excited about this addition, too, of Darian Lewis for the Mountaineers. But you see, a 5-star transfer here. So high rated as a transfer, ton of experience. And now West Virginia has picked up Devontae Golden Nelson from Akron in the last transfer portal cycle, who you're going to see play in the secondary this season. And then also now has picked up Darian Lewis as well. So two of Akron's best players out of their secondary now going to be West Virginia Mountaineers. And like I said, I would like to go to College Football 25, look at these things. And I was super impressed with what I saw for Darian Lewis, who was rated not only as their highest rated safety on the Akron team, but he was the second highest overall player on the entire Akron team there with an 81 overall on the video game. And it's funny because now West Virginia has gotten their highest rated cornerback on the video game and their highest rated safety in Darian Lewis, who I think is going to be someone that plays a key part. Like we said, 202 tackles, 17 pass breakups, 2 interceptions across 36 games there at Akron. And I think he'll be really good here at West Virginia, helping out the secondary, which they're trying to continue to improve. But those weren't the only ones. We still have 2 other names to talk about here. And those were defensive back Kalen Gray and linebacker John Lewis. We'll hit on linebacker John Lewis first, since he technically is a transfer. You see the asterisk there beside Kalen Gray. That's because he's actually, more of a recruit because he is coming from the JUCO ranks. But I'm still going to put him on our transfer in list since he will be coming in this cycle nonetheless. But let's talk a little bit about John Lewis, who is one of those that, when we talk about this, we try and keep up with the guys West Virginia reaches out to, that they offer scholarships to. I try and update you when I see guys coming in on visits. But there's some cases where West Virginia could be mum on it on purpose because they want to get a guy in, get him in on a visit, and potentially even get him to commit without anybody really even knowing about it. And that's kind of what happened here in the case of John Lewis, which let me pull it up today, the announcement of his commitment to WVU as well. Let's see here. Where is it? Maybe I didn't pull that one up. Too many tabs, and I don't even have that one pulled up somehow. What's the chances? Here we are. I pulled it up now. I think this one's also from Matt Zenitz, if I'm not mistaken. It is. So former UNLV and Mississippi State linebacker, which I believe he was in Mississippi State and then had planned to transfer to UNLV. Instead comes to WVU. Signs with West Virginia. Transferred to UNLV earlier this offseason, 44 career tackles at Mississippi State. So, not a ton of production, but man, as far as what he was coming out of high school and what he brings size-wise and versatility-wise, because let's look here. This was coming out of high school for John Lewis, which what's impressive here is 6'3", 240. That's a huge linebacker, a type of linebacker that West Virginia usually doesn't get with that type of size. And even with that size, he even lined up in the slot corner position sometimes at Mississippi State. So that shows how athletic he is, how fast he is. And, to go with that 6'3", 240 size, you can't pass up an athlete like that. Not a ton of production yet at the collegiate level, but maybe you can bring it out of him if anyone can. I think it's this staff, especially Zach Alley. When you look here, coming out of high school, he was a 92 grade, so that's getting close to 5-star range, but a high-rated 4-star, top 20 linebacker in the country was John Lewis coming out of high school. So super excited about that pick up there for the linebacking room. West Virginia's now added Ben Bogle at the linebacker spot. They've added John Lewis as well, which, like I said, going back to the college football video game, second highest rated linebacker on the Mississippi State roster, 76 overall. And he's also the fastest non-secondary player on that roster with 88 speed on the game. So this shows yet again the thing we continue to highlight in this transfer portal cycle. West Virginia wanted to get faster. They're continuing to add guys that are going to help make them faster, both on offense and on defense. So I like the potential of John Lewis, and I also like the potential of Caleb Gray, which let's talk about him a little bit here. Now, the fourth commitment West Virginia brought in today, this being the one coming from the JUCO ranks, and he's someone that you're more hoping to develop, for the future. As here is his commitment he announced on social media, committed all glory to God, tagged Rich Rod, and you see his nice commitment graphic there that he shared. Caleb Gray coming from the JUCO ranks, where he is actually highly regarded there, and he plays for Dodge City Community College, which if you know anything about the JUCO levels, Dodge City is always a team that's in there and very successful at the JUCO ranks. And you see here, I just had that pulled up as well. Here it is. Miss College Football says the top-ranked junior college defensive back in the country, Caleb Gray, has committed to West Virginia. And what you like about this pickup, I think, is the fact that he has 3 years of eligibility remaining. And I think you've seen here in the portal in this cycle, West Virginia get a good mix of guys that have 1 year remaining that are coming in to help you right away, plus some young guys with multiple years remaining that can help you down the line and you can try and develop a little bit. And I think Caleb Gray is one of those guys here as we pull up his profile here on the Dodge City site. You see only a freshman, so only played 1 year there at Dodge City, 6'1", 180. Could potentially play corner, could potentially play safety, whatever you want to develop him to do there, but has a great frame, especially being that young, that you can continue to put size on if you want to play safety. And like I said, 3 years of eligibility leaves you with a lot to work with there as you look at his numbers in his 1 season there. 3 forced fumbles is the stat that I like there. So maybe he could be, a hard-hitting safety, comes down and forces some fumbles. 5 pass breakups, 32 total tackles there in his first year as a freshman at Dodge City. Now we'll play out his final 3 years at WVU. So one more time, look at the transfer in list here with those 4 new additions, and we'll run through here. West Virginia has offensive lineman Mikel Clay from North Alabama, tight end Grayson Barnes from Northern Illinois, cornerback Nick Taylor from App State, wide receiver Christian Hamilton from UNC, defensive lineman Eddie Kelly from Missouri, linebacker Ben Bogle from Southern Illinois, offensive lineman Josh Isosa from Oklahoma, kicker Cade Hensley from Coastal Carolina, offensive lineman Malik Ogbo from Texas, wide receiver Justin Smith-Brown from South Carolina State, wide receiver Jordan McCants from Jack State, running back Jalen Knighton from SMU. Those are the ones we just talked about on the previous stream. And then here, the subjects of this stream, of course, junior college defensive back Kalen Gray, linebacker John Lewis from Mississippi State, offensive lineman Carson Lee, also from Mississippi State, spent most of his playing time at Eastern Michigan, and then defensive back Darian Lewis from Akron joins the Mountaineers as well. So that's the transfer in list thus far, and this is going to continue to grow, I think, guys. West Virginia's not done just yet. Like I said, I still think they may add another offensive lineman or two, and you'll see what I'm talking about here when we talk about the transfer targets momentarily. That's what we're going to do next. We got to take some names off the list that have committed elsewhere. Some were surprising to me and a little bit disappointing. But then when you see some of the guys West Virginia added today, I think you see why. But I also added some more names to the list. So West Virginia is still continuing to target guys in the portal. That's how you know they're not done yet by any means, despite a nice list of names there. And like I said, you already see 4 offensive linemen coming in. And I think at least 2 of those are potential starters, are going to compete for starting jobs, including the one we added today in Carson Lee. So I'm excited about the transfer portal class thus far. And we'll talk about the targets and update the target list and talk about who's coming in on visits, who else is on commitment watch, as we've just recently, of course, had both Carson Lee and Darian Lewis on commitment watch, and they do indeed commit today. So we'll update that next. Let me take a swig of my water, catch up on some of your all's comments, then we'll talk transfer targets. And like I said, at the tail end of the stream, do have a couple of basketball updates as well. All right. Channel member Shaq always hitting people with a nice reminder. Says 19 people watching. Please like, share, and subscribe and help the YouTube algorithm. Yeah, double that now. Getting close to 50 people in here now at this time. People rolling in. So if you are in here, whether you're live or even if you're watching on the playback, you can help out on the YouTube side by hitting that thumbs up button. Sorry, I got choked up on that water a little bit there. But you can help out by hitting that thumbs up button. It does help with that YouTube algorithm, which helps this channel grow. And if you're on Facebook and Twitch, got to encourage you to come over to the YouTube channel, subscribe here so you can get our pre-recorded videos and podcast episodes as well. Just put out a new podcast this week in addition to these live streams, which we're doing pretty much daily now, trying to keep up with the transfer portal movement, the targets, the visits, all of that good stuff here on the football side and on the basketball side, which has been a little bit quieter as of late, but now we do have some movement to talk about that in the near future. We appreciate you for reminding people, Shaq, as always, man. Let's see. Hey, Leo Cole, good to see you in here live, man. Always see you in the comments. He likes that our football team is coming together. Problem is with the basketball team, 2 players are testing the NBA draft, and there may not be enough NIL money to get better players. Yeah, I got my fingers crossed that they're still going to be, coming back to WVU. That being, I think it's Brennan Lorient and Trace and Eaglestaff, the 2 you're referencing there, which, yes, they are indeed testing the NBA draft waters. But West Virginia does feel confident that they'll still be on the team this season. So, if that does indeed happen, I would think that you would get the NIL money you'd plan to pay them back. So you would at least have a little something to work with. But I feel pretty confident that those guys are going to be in the fold for the upcoming season, Leo. And I think I like the basketball roster thus far. They definitely have a good starting group, couple good key reserves, but definitely need to round that out here with another guard, another big man. Then you feel a lot better about things. But I really love the starting lineup for the basketball team, though, personally. As Eric Flowers says, they more than likely won't go to the NBA just to check and see what you're worth and how much you'll make with another year under your belt. I agree, Eric. Mikey Lawless says the GOAT. Nah, man, that's you, Mike. That's me. That's you right there, Mikey. Shout out to Mikey Lawless in the comments there. Appreciate you, bro. But with that being said, let's talk transfer target list now. Let's go ahead and pull this up, and we're going to make some updates to this thing. We are going to not only take some names off, but you're going to see some new names at the bottom, which we'll highlight momentarily. And we'll talk about guys that have visited or are visiting, because then, of course, it's commitment watch status, right? And there are some guys that we had on commitment watch that committed today, and there are guys that we had on commitment watch that committed other places. And that's just the way that cookie crumbles sometimes in this process. So let's go ahead. Let's get the negative out of the way first. Let's talk about some of the names we're going to take off of here. Let me pull up couple of these and talk about some of the names that are coming off the list here. One of those being Joseph Adedier, actually committed to NC State. He had recently visited WVU and then visited NC State yesterday, I do believe. Ends up committing to the Wolfpack. So we're going to go ahead and remove him from the list. Where is he at here? There he is. Take him off the list there. And then also I saw Greg Smith predicted to go commit to UNC potentially. So we're going to go ahead and take him off as well, although I didn't have that tweet pulled up. So we'll go ahead and update that one also. A couple more names off the list here. Let's see if I can find make sure I pulled up the tweets on these others here. Yeah, there's one of them. This being Jermichael Carter, a wide receiver that West Virginia was targeting in the transfer portal, is committing to Oklahoma. So we will go ahead and take his name off the list as well. Let's go ahead and do that too. And then we'll talk about who remains on the list, and we'll go over some new names that are added to the list as well and talk about their game a little bit. But we'll go ahead and we'll take Jermichael Carter off the list here. Saw he was removed. And shout out to Mountaineers Report, who's been helping me keep up with some of these guys as they commit other places as well. A lot to follow here in the portal from trying to keep up with who West Virginia is targeting, who's coming in on visits, and then, of course, who that you have targeted has committed to other places as well. Let's see here. I thought I had the other one pulled up here also. Maybe I didn't pull that one up. Let me see. I might have forgot to bookmark that one. There it is. I'll pull it up now. And this is the one that I was talking about that was surprising to me. Because you guys know, and especially channel members that were in the member hangout there that we do monthly, I was pretty confident in Will Osteen coming to West Virginia, and it was one I was excited about. But instead, goes to North Carolina. And I think what this tells me is North Carolina probably throwing some money around. You've seen them get, multiple transfer portal commits recently. And, I think that Will Osteen, I thought was going to come to WVU. He had planned to visit WVU, North Carolina, South Carolina. Ends up committing to North Carolina. It was a guy that we had on commitment watch for the Mountaineers. Ends up committing elsewhere. And like I said, that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But he is a talented offensive lineman. But I also think, maybe West Virginia got Carson Lee as well, and that's what played a part into Osteen's decision. But nonetheless, we can remove him from our target list now as well. And I do love the addition of Carson Lee. You don't like to have both those guys, but I think you do still get a guy that contributed to to a starting role. And you still look at West Virginia with multiple offensive line targets here that are coming in on visits or have visited this week, which will highlight that momentarily. I think that is the last one that I had to pull up as far as moving someone off the list. Other than that, we got to talk about some names we added to the list here. So let's highlight some of these guys that have came in on visits recently. Jacob Robinson from Emory and Henry is one of those. Isaiah Spence from Jackson State, I believe, is supposed to still be visiting in the future. Jalen Caldwell from Grand Valley State, I believe, is visiting this week or may have visited the past couple of days. Same goes for Jaden McDonald, the linebacker from Virginia Tech. And then Cannon Katzer, a running back from Ferris State. We added him to the transfer target list on the previous stream, and we have an update on him here that he will indeed be coming in on a visit. He put this out on social media yesterday, so he's actually on a visit today, according to his tweet that he put out there on social media. So he also is visiting WVU, as West Virginia was thin in the running back room. They've added Jalen Knighton, and they're targeting him as well. So he's in on a visit. Cannon Kasser. We know Aaliyah Boykin's supposed to be coming in on a visit. The Barton College edge rusher. Donovan Haslam is a target for the Mountaineers. Deacle Crowdus is a new target that we highlighted last time. Same goes for Trayvon Mitchell. So you can see 4 new names that we've added to the list since our previous stream even. That's how quickly this thing has moved. So, we added, 5 new names to the transfer portal list, this transfer target list, I think, on the previous stream. And, been trying to do one of these almost every day. And even in that time, from the time that we've added those 5 names to the stream today, we've had guys commit elsewhere, and we've had West Virginia land 4 commits. That's why they say this thing's like speed dating here in the transfer portal. You got to get, you're interested in a guy, you offer him, you get him in on campus, you try and get him committed or signed while he's here if you can. And that's the way this goes a lot of times. That's why West Virginia landed so many today, and that's why once a guy gets in on a visit, we put him on commitment watch. So let's highlight these 4 new additions, and then we will talk a little bit about who is on commitment watch for the Mountaineers. So let's go through these, and I'll show you guys why I've added each one of those names to the target list here. And one of these is already taken a visit, actually, and that's Zay Smith taking an official visit coming up. I guess that's next week, May 4th and May 5th. And he is the defensive lineman that you saw there, added to the transfer target list, which, if I could pull it up, I believe it's Houston Christian, the school that he's from. Pull up his bio here as well and show you guys, but he's coming on an official visit next week. 6'1", 270-pound defensive tackle from Houston Christian. Started multiple games the past couple of seasons for them. See if we can pull up some stats here for these past couple of seasons. So 54 tackles from his defensive tackle spot this year is pretty impressive. 134 tackles over his time there. Has the extra year of eligibility, 15 TFLs and 10 sacks there as well. So it seems like a pass rushing defensive tackle there is Zaylen Smith, and he'll be visiting WVU. And we have added him to our transfer target list as well. Then we have, let's see here. Another name that we've added to the list being Devin Grant here, who is another linebacker West Virginia has reached out to and offered scholarship, as he is put there on social media. Let me pull up his bio here. He's actually from Incarnate Word, which, funny enough, #1 pick in the NFL draft, Cam Ward, that's where he began his career also, was at Incarnate Word. And Devin Grant would be a senior, a guy coming up with 1 year of eligibility remaining, 6'3", 225-pound linebacker. You look at his stats there, 43 tackles over the past 2 seasons, but 16 and a half TFLs and 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. So shows good ability to rush the passer there, which is probably what he's being targeted to do. And Devin Grant added to our transfer target list here, as West Virginia has offered him a scholarship. And then I think we do have a couple more here to highlight, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we do. One being another skill position guy West Virginia is targeting. And this one is interesting, guys. I think this would be a good pickup for West Virginia. He's one of those guys with a lot of wiggle. Kind of reminds you of the old, Jock Sanders, Darius Renard days, if talking to somebody in the Rich Rod offense. And that's UConn wide receiver Josiah Gathings. Multiple offers and a visit schedule set to be finalized soon. So West Virginia may be getting a visit here as well. We'll see what happens. But, you see his interest list here. West Virginia firmly on there with a slew of other, Power 5 and Group of 5 schools there for Josiah Gathing. So one to keep an eye on here is West Virginia may be in the mix for the UConn wide receiver. So that's why we added him to our transfer target list as well, which let's pull up some of his numbers from his time there at UConn and talk a little bit about him really quickly. And then we'll talk about the fourth edition that we made there to the transfer target list. Then we'll pull that list back up, talk about who's on commitment watch before we talk about a couple of WVU basketball updates to finally go over at the tail end of this stream. So Josiah Gathings, the UConn wide receiver, 6'1", 190 pounds. And funny enough, from Statesville, North Carolina, which is actually where I grew up. That's where my brother was born. We moved away from West Virginia when I was like 1, lived in Statesville, North Carolina for like the first 10, 11 years of my life before we moved back to West Virginia. So funny to see that be in his hometown. But 32 receptions, 307 yards, 3 touchdowns, so nearly 10 yards per catch this past season. Showcasing great speed, like we've talked about West Virginia going after in the portal, and really similar size to the receivers they've brought in as well. When you look at Christian Hamilton, he is 6 foot, 190 pounds. You look at Jordan McCants, he's almost 6 foot, right at 180. Justin Smith-Brown is exactly 6'1", 190. So Smith-Brown, 6'1", 190, who's committed to West Virginia. Christian Hamilton, 6 foot, 190. And then now Gathing, 6'1", 190. So you kind of see the receivers that they're going after here, outside receiver bodies that have good speed to play those outside spots. And Gathings, I think, would have 2 years of eligibility remaining, if I'm not mistaken. Last year, like I said, 307 yards, 3 touchdowns. But the year before that, he almost had 600 yards and had over 10 yards per catch. So good numbers in his time there at UConn does Josiah Gathings have. So glad to have him to our transfer target list. And then the other name that we've added here is a tight end. We knew West Virginia would add at least one tight end. They got one of the best ones possible in Grayson Barnes, but they certainly are targeting others. We knew they'd probably add at least 2 tight ends, and one of those that we're keeping an eye on is former Ball State tight end Christian Abney. That's why you saw his name pop up on our list. Visited Illinois recently, but other programs interested, according to On3, Kansas, Vanderbilt, Indiana, Kentucky, and, of course, WVU going after the Ball State tight end. So that's why he pops up on our transfer target list as well, which let's pull that back up one more time, talk about who we can put on commitment watch here on the target list. All right. So transfer in list we've updated with the 4 new names that we just talked about earlier. Transfer target list we've updated by removing some guys that committed elsewhere and adding the 4 names we just went over right there: the wide receiver Josiah Gathings, the linebacker Devin Grant, the defensive lineman Zay Smith, and the tight end Christian Abney. So as we look at this list, the way I like to, keep guys on commitment watch is once they visit, you put them on commitment watch, see where things fall from there. And so who has visited WVU? Defensive back Jacob Robinson from Emory and Henry, offensive lineman Jalen Caldwell from Grand Valley State, linebacker Jaden McDonald from Virginia Tech, running back Cannon Katzer from Ferris State. And then on upcoming visits, which, not quite on commitment watch yet because they haven't made it to the visit yet. That's, you can never rule out them committing elsewhere and not making it to you. But Elijah Boykin, an edge rusher from Barton College, Donovan Haslam, an awesome offensive lineman from Austin P. And then, of course, we just learned defensive lineman Zay Smith going to be visiting West Virginia as well. So some other names to keep an eye on there, in addition to the ones we talked about that are on commitment watch, being the running back Cannon Katzer from Ferris State, offensive lineman Jalen Caldwell from Grand Valley State, linebacker Jaden McDonald from Virginia Tech, and defensive back Jacob Robinson from Emory and Henry. So that's the target list I have currently. As more names get added, as more names get taken away, we'll continue to talk about them in future updates. But super excited about this transfer class that's already been formed for West Virginia, and we're going to continue to add more names to this list. Like I said, I think we added a couple potential starters today in defensive back Darian Lewis and offensive lineman Carson Lee. So excited about those pickups there. And that's what I had on the football side. But, it's been quiet on the basketball side, right? So figured finally we get a couple of updates here. Let's address them on this same stream because I know we've all been dying to hear some more portal news on the basketball side. They went out and added some of the best players possible in the portal, one of the best 3-point shooters, one of the best scorers, a really good potential starting five, which I highlighted on our recent podcast episode. But I think that they're continuing to try and round out that roster, and we're continuing to hear news on that. So we'll update our target list on the basketball side as well. I want to pull up one guy that you're going to see us pull off this list, and that's Central Connecticut guard Devin Hade, who committed to USF. And upon someone's suggestion, what I've decided to do is do this list the same way I've done the football one. When I first started the basketball one, as you can see, I was doing it this way, where we highlight, the guys that commit elsewhere in red and what school they commit to. But it just kind of makes the list too lengthy, and it's going to be easier on the eyes if I just remove guys when they commit elsewhere. But we do have one positive update there, and that is Keontae Jones, a previous to West Virginia target, decommitted from USC. So maybe back in play for the Mountaineers. That would be awesome if so. But let's go ahead. Let's take away some of these guys that have committed elsewhere. We've talked about all these on previous streams, and if we haven't, I'll try and highlight them as we go through here. Some of the more recent ones, which Don McHenry, I think, was the most recent one. And I talked about him on the last stream. He committed to Utah. These other ones we've talked about in the past here, go ahead and take them off as well. Remove them from the list here, and we'll try and get a cleaner look at our basketball list because we have added a couple more names to it, actually. And that's what we're going to talk about here for the basketball news on this stream. I think we've talked about all of these names. Devin Hade is the one we just added there. He committed to USF, previous target there. Kamani Hamilton committed to UNLV. We covered that in a recent stream. Same for Tyrell Ward to VCU and Parsifala to Oklahoma State. Jamel Jones recently committed to New Mexico State. Last stream, of course, we talked about Smurf Millender, which was one we thought was going to go WVU's way, but it took a last-second turn. Remove those names from the list. And then Sam Alexis from the list, and Federico. I don't think West Virginia's after anymore, so we'll go ahead and take him off as well, which leaves us with these names here, which the ones in blue have already committed to WVU. You see our transfer in list here, of course. These names remain uncommitted that I know of thus far, but I will add, I didn't, go back and look at these names that hadn't previously committed and see if they committed elsewhere in the meantime and in between time. So may not be 100% accurate, but what I know is accurate is the two new names we're going to add to this list here, and I'll show you why. And we'll talk about a little bit about each of those. So first up, let's talk about Sebastian Akins, who is the Summit League Freshman of the Year. Believed to be having visited WVU. He is from Denver. That's a report from On3, which the article is behind a paywall. But West Virginia is one of the Big 12 schools that they are referencing there that is in play for him, and I think he would be a good addition to this roster for the Mountaineers. So let's pull up that transfer target list. Let's go ahead and throw Sebastian Akins' name on there as he may be coming in on a visit to WVU. And he's a guy with multiple years of eligibility left as well. So let's throw him on here. Sebastian Akins, and he is from Denver. Pull up his stats here a little bit, and we'll talk about him briefly. And then we'll highlight the other addition to the list here on the basketball side, as we do have just a tiny little bit of basketball news to talk about at least. But Akins was a freshman at Denver, 6'2", 175-pound guard. So good size there, especially for a freshman playing guard there at 6'2". Could end up being, 6'3 plus like Jasper Floyd, who would potentially be this year's starter. But you look at his numbers as a freshman at the college level, 13 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and shot 42% from the field. Look at him here, 30% from the three-point line, not terrible. 76% from the free throw line. 3 assists to 2 turnovers, not a terrible ratio there either, especially for a freshman. That's probably only going to improve as he continues his career, and you show that he can score the basketball. 42% field goal percentage shows that, and nearly 13 points per game shows that as well, especially as it looks like he was probably the team's point guard there for Denver. So I like Akins, and we'll see what plays out with him moving forward in the future. And then the other name here that we're going to add to the list is an LSU transfer, actually. Curtis Givens, receiving interest from the following programs. This from Sam Kaiser of 247 High School Hoops. Maryland, Ole Miss, Miami, Memphis, Iowa, USC, Georgia, Villanova, Wake, Texas A&M, BYU, and, of course, WVU. Averaged 5 points per game this season, but he was a top 50 recruit in the 2024 class. So we can pull up our target list here and add his name as well. Let's go ahead and pull him up here on ESPN also so we can go over his highlights, his stats a little bit after that. But it's another guard West Virginia is targeting, and another lengthy guard at that. He's also is 6'3". But you kind of see a theme there with West Virginia's point guards, I guess, from Jasper Floyd to the target Akins, and now to the target Curtis Givens, who we're going to add to this target list for the Mountaineers as well here. And he is coming from LSU. It's multiple programs going after him, but West Virginia has shown they can get in the mix and compete with the best of them in this transfer portal cycle, already landing some of the top portal players with Eagle Staff and Honor Huff, among others. But now we've added Sebastian Akins and Curtis Givens to this target list, which hopefully will continue to grow here in the coming days, and we'll continue to update you as it does. But just to round it out here, looking at Givens, 6'3", 185, would have multiple years remaining. 5 points per game, 2 rebounds, over an assist per game. Not the best field goal percentage wise, but probably didn't play extensive minutes either. So it doesn't look to be necessarily a score first guy. Definitely going to probably be more of an assist guy and hopefully a defensive guy. But either way, you're looking at a guy with a lot of potential with what he was rated coming out of high school, and looking for a fresh start. You never know what could happen, especially with time to develop in your program. And of course, it's power conference transfer, but those are always nice adds. So Curtis Givens, Akins, either one, I think would be a good pickup for West Virginia at the guard spot, as I think that's what you'll see West Virginia add next in basketball is, another guard to the backcourt, and then definitely another big man to back up OBO highs is needed as well. So we'll see what happens. It looks like more movement's going to start to pick up there on the basketball side as well. So hopefully we'll continue to have more updates for it, and we're definitely going to have more for football with the way they're rolling right now. Red hot, 4 commitments in one day, and I hope you learned a little bit about each of those commitments for sure. Shaq, yeah, we do have Eagle Staff. He already signed with us. That target listed, the ones names in blue are the ones that have already committed to WVU. Let me pull back up the transfer in list just to highlight that one more time. May as well, since I highlighted it on the football side, in case some people don't know the ones that have already signed with West Virginia. But see here on the target list, all the names in blue have, but we also have our transfer in list here to highlight it further. Harlan Obioha, the transfer from UNC Wilmington, 7', 280. Brennan Lorient, the transfer forward from North Texas. Also have Jasper Floyd, the guard from North Texas. Honor Huff, nation's leading three-point shooter last year from Chattanooga. Jackson Fields, a forward from Troy. Chance Moore, a guard from St. Bonaventure. And Trayson Eaglestaff, a guard from North Dakota. They've all signed with us already. The only thing that you have to worry about is potential going to the draft, because Eaglestaff and Brennan Lorient are both testing the NBA draft waters. But that's probably just to get, like we talked about earlier, their grades and their predictions. They're going to be at WVU next year. They're going to be playing. I feel pretty confident in saying that. But yeah, that's what's going on with that, Shaq. But appreciate you as always being a channel member, and always reminding people to like and subscribe. Which, one more time, if you're watching live on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the YouTube channel, subscribe here to keep up with all this portal movement on the football and basketball side with our pre-recorded videos and podcast episodes, in addition to these live streams. But if you did watch this on YouTube live or on the playback, be sure to hit the thumbs up before you finish the video. Help us out with that algorithm. And throw your thoughts in the comments if you didn't get a chance to chat live. Always appreciate those interactions as we continue to try and grow the CRW community throughout Mountaineer Nation. With that being said, guys, I'm sure we're going to have more great news in the portal for WVU football and WVU basketball, but hell of a day for the Mountaineers on the football side today. 4 commitments in one day, including a couple that I feel like can be potential starters. So super excited about the way these transfer classes are shaping up for both sports, in hoops and in football, and we'll continue to keep you updated on both here in future live streams and videos on the Country Roads webcast. Having said that, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.